everybody! Welcome to Tactic Test. International Master Sopika Garamishvili, Miss Tactics, here for you on Chess 24. Unfortunately, this is not the live session, but I'll try my best so you enjoy the video and learn something from it. I'm gonna challenge myself for coming hour to solve the tactics on Chess 24. And it's gonna be a real big challenge for me because I don't have your help, guys. It's really tough, but I'll try my best. I'll try to explain the position, I'll try to explain the tactical motives, and I'll try to express my thoughts about the position. So I hope you're gonna have fun, and let's get started. I'm gonna go on Chess24 website, and there you choose the Learn tab where you push Tactic Trainer, and it's really amazing thing from Chess24. I'm going to start the classical trainer, but if you're playing a tournament or even before the game, before the tournament, you can choose, and I really recommend you to start the speed trainer, which is you just choose the time, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and you solve as many tactics as possible. It is really cool. It will keep you alert, it will keep you sharp, and you're gonna play more aggressive chess, which I love. Okay, but let's see how I will do this time, because my previous tactic test went real bad. Chess24 gave me really hard times because the tactics I faced, it was horribly hard, and I was just sitting here looking at the position and I'm like, I don't understand anything. So I hope I'm gonna have better luck today. I'm gonna be more sharp and solve the tactics. Okay, let's go, and here we have the first tactic. It is white's move, and black's last move was rook g2. Let's take a look at the position. Materially, we have no piece, so black has extra piece, and I have to do something. Otherwise, I'm kinda lost. What about rook g3? This comes to my mind because the f7 pawn is very strong. So after rook g3, if you're gonna take rook g3, queen g3, then I do not see how can black defend the mate, though bishop g7 is there. My idea of rook g3 was that very easy one, cheap trick, rook f2 and rook g8 mate, but not so easy. We have to calculate. Okay, so first of all, what happens on rook g3? Rook g3 is the only move, because if bishop g7, I'll just promote the pawn. Rook g3, queen g3, there are no checks. Queen g8 is a huge threat, so after bishop g7, let's see what do we have. Queen g3 here also, it's standing very good, so if there was no piece on e5, then I would have queen b8. So for example, knight g6 afterwards is the move. Queen g6, it's queen b8, sorry. And if h takes g6, then probably queen h4. Bishop h6, queen h6 mate. So this should be the solution. Queen g6, queen b8. Yay! Perfect. That was actually very nice example. So after rook g2, rook g3, we are threatening the mate on g8. So rook f2 is not possible because of rook g8. Rook g3, queen g3, only move bishop g7 and knight g6. After knight g6, if black takes hg, then queen h4 wins, and if queen g6, queen b8, mate. Okay, let's continue. Again, white's move, and black's last move was rook b8. Queen on a3 is standing perfect, and there are several checks, open checks. Let's say knight f5, knight c8, knight e8, knight b5, lots of things. But the problem is that there is knight c5 or queen c5. So what makes sense? Knight b7 makes sense, but after king e8, I'm not sure I see anything direct. Knight c8 is the move, because if queen c5, knight c5, rook d8 is made. If knight c5, queen c5, and rook d8 is the mate. Yep, that's the solution. After rook b8, it's important to close this back rank, so that knight controls the e7 square. As you can see, king cannot go anywhere. f7, g7, g8, they are all occupied, and only chance is to go knight c5. King e8 does not work because there is queen e7. So after knight c5, I'll just take, and after queen c5, it's a beautiful mate on the back rank. Okay, continue. So again, white's move. Black's last move was queen a7, and let's start the calculation. Something going on the king side. Well, queen side, but the king is on queen side, so I mixed it up. The king is very weakened. Somehow white has to use it. But the question is how? Sacrificing on a6 probably does not give me anything, because, well, rook a6, bishop a6, and unfortunately I don't see anything there. Some kind of double attack might be also possible. The point is that when you look at the position and when you kind of don't understand what's going on, you have to look the whole board and the pieces. Which pieces are coordinated, which pieces defend each other, and which are unprotected ones. Let's say rook h8 here is quite lonely and unprotected. So if the bishop was not on a5, I would play queen c3, and it would be double attack on h8 and c8 bishop. So black would be in huge trouble. But he is not, because the bishop is on a5. And once again, I don't have a piece. There is extra piece for black pieces. This is tough. No direct threats also. Tough, tough. I really need your help in this position. But unfortunately, once again, I'm not live and I'm trying to solve it all by myself. And this is going to be quite tough challenge for me. Okay. So I'll try to change the way of thinking. Let's start what are our move candidates. Okay, let's say rook a6, bishop a6, rook c8. We always have to check the sacrifices and the checks. So these three moves first. Another could be queen h6. Queen h6 makes a real big sense. Queen h6, the rook has to go because rook h6, rook c8 is there. Let's say rook goes to e8 or d8. And did I improve my queen's position or not? This is the question. I think I did, because after queen h6, rook d8, let's say, bishop a6 is now possible. No, rook a6, bishop a6, queen c6, bishop b7, and what? Bishop b7. I can take on a4, but still I'm without the piece. I don't like that. That's tough. So once again, queen h6, rook d8, rook has to go on d8, because after rook e8 I would have rook a6, bishop a6 and queen c6, and the rook is hanging on e8. So rook d8, I would go, let's say bishop a6, queen g1 check doesn't give him anything because after king a2 I'm completely fine. Yeah, and I think this is the solution, because the queen is kind of stuck on a7. Bishop cannot really move. Let's say bishop f5 after bishop a6. Then I have bishop b7 moves. This looks like the solution. I have also rook c8. Okay, yeah, that's the solution, but I don't know why black went rook e8. I think that rook d8 was more challenging. Okay, but here I will just grab another rook and that's it. Yay! That's nice. So queen h6, I think more challenging would be to go to d8, and then I would take bishop a6, and after bishop a6 I don't see a good move for black. Black is in huge trouble because I threatened to take on c8, bishop c8, rook a6. It's disaster. Okay, let's continue, and we have black's move. This time, queen g3 was the last move from white side, and again something going on the king side. King is on h7, kinda stuck. Queen is on f1, but it's under attack. But if I take this rook on a1, then the f4 rook is hanging. Queen f1 is also the piece which is under attack, so let's see what we can do. If we move the queen, let's say queen c4, it would be completely normal move, but I don't see that there is anything special with this move. Yeah, we might have pleasant position because, okay, we just have no pawn. Let's say while white has extra b2 pawn, but still white's king's position is very, very weak, so white has black has really good compensation for the pawn. But I don't think this is the solution, because there should be something going on. Because if I take it on a1, I have then on check on a8. Oh my god, this is so easy. I just take here and I give the check. And the mate. Shame I took so much time for this. But you know what? It's always very difficult to see these long queen moves. And you have to look, when you're playing and when you're solving something, you have to look the whole board. For example, it would be very common mistake just to play queen c4 here, because like, oh, he played queen g3, so it means that you trust your opponent and you don't calculate one move ahead than him. Queen a1, queen f4, and you might end your calculation here. But you always have to remind yourself, okay, I end my calculation here, but let's see one move more. Just one extra move, and that's it. You just see one extra move, and then if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, good. You just end the calculation. If you like the position, you go for it. If you don't like it, you just search for another solution. And here it was very easy, because after queen a1, queen f4, there is open file, and queen can go to a8, give the check, and after queen e4, it's mate. But it's kind of, from the first position, it's kind of unimaginable that the queen from f1 can go to a8. It's like, what? The queen is not the knight, the huge knight which can jump from f1 to a8. But yeah, after queen a8, queen f4, queen a8 check, it's lost for white. Okay, let's continue the game, and now we have bishop ending. I think I've seen this tactic before. b4 was the move I thought about, I think, because if a takes b4, then bishop c4, and the bishop is kind of stuck on a2, and otherwise I just go king after king e4 and b5. So also after king somewhere, bishop c4 is the threat. Yeah, this is very, very, very nice puzzle, because after king d5, if you play, let's say, bishop c4, dc4, king c4, then black is in favorable position. We sacrificed the pawn and we did not achieve anything, because the pawn is not on b2, b4, but it is on b2, which means that we can never move it forward because of a4 pawn. We could play something like king f3, but after king f3 there are several moves for black. We will win this pawn on f4, or we will not, because of king e5, bishop c4 and bishop b1. But this is very easy. After b4, black doesn't have any other move he has to take, because if he moves the king, then we will go for king f3, or even bishop c4, and the pawn is much better on b4 rather than on b2. Okay, another tactic. Again, endgame. Black's last move was bishop f5. And how are the pawns? Material is equal. Rook g1 is the move I think about, but bishop g6, let's say. H4, king f7. Opposite colored bishop, equal material. Everything hints that it should be a draw, but no, because this is a puzzle and we have to find something. Generally, opposite colored bishops is not like, oh my god, it's a draw. When you have opposite colored bishops, if there are pieces, then they are very, very dangerous, because let's say if we attack, let's say rook g1, probably this is not the move, but just to prove what is my point, is that if I play rook g1 and he goes king h8, then there is bishop d4, checkmate, because there is no dark squared bishop. And the pluses of opposite colored bishops are that in attack they are very, very strong. Okay, but we don't have the queen now, we have just the rook, and he just played bishop f5. The question is if I can grab the pawn on a7 or not. This comes to my mind as a second move after rook g1, because first, when I look at the position, my mind thinks about pins. If I can win the bishop somehow. But there is no way I can win the bishop, because after rook g1, bishop g6 is the move. I guess king f7 might be also possible, actually. Rook f1 and king g6 or e8. Yeah. Oh, I see. Bishop a7. The point is that b6, a4, rook a8, a5, rook a7, ab, rook a1, b7. But if he doesn't take rook a1 and goes rook b7, then I don't have the piece. Ay, 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 ay. If you knew, guys, how much I need your help now, but once again, I'm not live and I'm torturing myself to solve this tactic. Okay, so bishop a7, b6, bishop cannot go anywhere. What if I go rook f1 with the idea of bishop f b8, let's say? But rook f1, he can even go rook a8, rook f5, rook a7. Okay, then I have extra pawn. Yeah, probably this is the solution because I don't see any other options for white. And rook f1. Yeah, that's the solution. That's right. Okay, and here I wanted to go bishop b8. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we just have to consider taking these pawns, and we should not search for attack and for aggressive maneuvers or something like this. We just grabbed the pawn on a7, just a little bit of calculation if we can keep the pawn or not. b6 is the only move because if rook a8, then I can move the bishop very freely. So after b6, rook f1 is very important because it pins the bishop, so the bishop cannot move. Well, he can, of course, but then I'll just take the rook, king f8, and bishop f8, bishop b8. I'll grab the c7 pawn. And king g7, of course, wants to play king g6 and make his rook free. But bishop b8 and rook b8, I grab the bishop on f8, on f5, and if king g6, I'll just grab the pawn. Very good. So far, so good. But it's being difficult. Okay, bishop e5 was black's last move, and what can I play here? It is white's move. Material is equal. The strongest piece, I think, is the bishop on c3 for white because it kind of pins everything and looks very good. Let's say rook e4 comes to my mind to pin the bishop. Bishop e4, then rook queen d7 comes to my mind, or even bishop e5, queen e5 and queen d7. But then what I didn't do anything extraordinary. So rook e4, bishop e4, queen d7, bishop e5, king g8, bishop h3, wins. I will have extra piece. What can be the drawback of rook e4? I don't see any drawback. Rook f5 does not look like it works. Even bishop h3 I have. Or rook e5, and bishop h3. Yeah, I think that's the solution. Let's try. Queen d7. Yep, that's it. Here, bishop e5. Another possibility was to play bishop h3. Chess24 is suggesting me to play also bishop h3. And after queen h3, rook f4. I saw these ideas with rook f4, and if queen f6, then of course bishop d7. But I liked rook e4 because it kind of pins everything. If bishop c3, then rook e6 wins. If bishop e4, queen d7, and as we already saw, queen d7, bishop g7 wins because queen g7, bishop g7, king g7, it's not equal material because the bishop is hanging on e4. Okay, let's continue, and there we go. White's move, black's last move was e4. Okay, I see the position for the first time. What are the weaknesses and strengths I notice in the position? What I think is that bishop on e6 might be a tiny bit weak because it's only defended with the queen on d7, so at some point I might have knight e4 tactics. Queen d7 and rook, king on e8 are on the same diagonal, which means that bishop a4 sometimes might be the threat, not now because there is c6. What else I see in the position that I can use? Yeah, probably these two motifs gives me the idea to take on e4, d takes e4, and play d5, which means that if you move the bishop, I would have bishop a4 and there would not be c6. And if you take on d5 after bishop d5, it's complete disaster for black. White squares are doomed. And what else? Otherwise, I would just take on e6 and I would have extra pawn. Yep, I'm going for it. Yeah, bishop f5 and bishop a4. This is very nice. I liked the way I started to look at the position. Just when you look at it, you think about what your mind thinks, what your mind sees in the position. First thing I thought about e4 was that, cannot I sacrifice it? What does it give me? If I sacrifice the knight on e4, d takes e4 and d5, because the bishop is not hanging, and okay, d5 he can move, but then I noticed that there is queen on d7 and king on e8. So when I looked at the position, the first thing I saw was king e8, queen d7, and bishop e6. There should be something going on there, because I have very good bishop on b3 and the queen on d1 and the rook, and the a4 square is free. So after bishop a4, there is move c6, and I cannot do anything. But if I take on e4 and play d5, I'm either winning the queen because it's a huge threat of bishop a4, or I'm winning the piece if he doesn't move the bishop, and let's say he moves the king f8 or something else. Very good. Okay, I'm cheering up myself. And let's get ready for another puzzle. Black's move. White's last move was queen d4. So what do I see first in the position? I see that something might be going on with the king on a1, because the bishop on d3 is very good, and back rank it is defended, but there might be some kind of, let's say, rook b2, for example, comes to my mind. I'm not sure what does it give me because my queen on f6 is hanging. The idea was that if there is no b2 pawn, then I would have bishop e5. let's say rook b2, bishop b2, there is bishop e5 move, or king b2, also bishop e5 move, and I'm winning the piece, well, the queen. But if, let's say, rook b2 and he takes on f6, then I'm really not sure what can I do, because rook b1 doesn't work, there is rook b1, bishop e5 doesn't help, he can simply take on e5, and what else? So rook b2 is not the idea. Bishop e5 though can be the point to sacrifice this bishop on d3 and take rook b2 with huge threat of rook b3. And I think it should work. There are no checks, my king is quite safe. Let's go for it. Rook b2, right? Yeah, looks like rook b2 is the move. Okay, this was kind of easy because first I checked directly rook b2, but when I did not find anything on queen f6, I thought that okay, but why not bishop e5 first? Take the bishop and then I take the rook, and I have perfect control on h8, a1 diagonal, and I don't see how white can defend the open check. First of all, the huge threat is rook b3, and if he manages somehow to defend something, rook d2, any open check wins generally in this position. Okay, let's continue again. King a1, it is black's move. King should be in danger. I see something connected to rook a5. What else do I see first in the position? I think rook a5 is quite strong because it has a very, very direct threat. So queen a5, queen c1, king a2, bishop e6, rook b3 only move. And I sacrificed the rook, and I did not have the piece from the starting position, but my all pieces are in attack. So after rook b3, I can play, let's say, queen c2, king a3 is queen b3 mate, and king a1 is rook d1, rook b1, rook b1 mate. This should be the solution. Queen c2. That's right, it was very direct and very clear puzzle. So queen on a3 is defending the c1 square. What we should do is we have to distract the queen. After rook a5 he has to take, otherwise we'll just grab the queen. So queen a5, queen c1, then bishop comes into play after bishop e6, rook b3, and queen c2. And it's lost because after king a3 there is mate on b3, and after king a1 there is rook d1 mate. Okay, let's continue. King h7. King h7, it is white's move. I see in the position that black's king is kind of weak. My f7 pawn is amazing, and which gives me ideas to play queen g8, rook g8, f8, knight, because I don't want the king to escape, and king h8, rook h7 mate. This was quite clear, so I guess this puzzle does not need any explanations. let's not waste the time, and again black's move, white's last move was rook f1. Okay, the first thought that comes to my mind when I see the new position is rook f1 might be a mistake, because if I had some kind of check, the king could move and the rook is only protected with the queen. This is one. E3 bishop is also not very good piece, because it's also protected with one piece. Of course, at the moment it's protected, but what I mean is that it's 1-1. I threat, he defends. I have a threat, he also defends. So it gives me idea of some sacrifice. Let's say rook f1, king f1, queen d1, check. If queen d1, knight e3, king e1, but it doesn't work because material would be equal. But such kind of thoughts popped up into my mind. Let's see if I can use it in different way. What is the different way? My active pieces are the queen on a4, the rook on f8, and the knight on c4. So far, knight c7 does not take part into any attacking plan, but it's very good because it defends the d5 pawn. So there is no danger of check or anything. How can I use it? For example, rook f1, king f1, queen c2. And if queen c2, then knight e3. If not queen c2, he has to play, let's say, queen d4. And on queen d4, what can I do? I can play knight e6. And actually, this knight, which was not taking part into attack, now wins the game. I think that's the solution. Rook f1, king f1, queen c2, and knight e3. But nice point was that I said that, okay, my active pieces are this queen on a4, the knight on c4, and rook f8. And this knight only protects the d5 pawn, which was important because if the knight was not on c7, after queen c2, he could take on d5. But another nice point is that after queen d4, which I see as the only move to protect the bishop, then is knight e6. Very beautiful, because this pawn is on b6, controlling c5, and closing a7, g1 diagonal. It is protected by the knight. Queen d5 is not possible because of knight e3 afterwards, and there is no way that white can protect the bishop, so he loses the piece. I liked it very much. Okay, so now queen d3, black's move. Once again, weak king, g2 pawn, weak. Bishop on e3, very good, because controls on g1, controls the g1 square. Something might happen on h file, because if there was no h2 pawn, then there would be mate on h file, and I would say also weak back rank, which means that he cannot take something freely. Let's say queen g3 comes to my mind. hg is refuted by rook h5 mate. Queen e3 is refuted by queen e3, Ooh, rook c1. I don't have rook c1. Okay. No, I have rook c1, because he took with queen. Queen e3, queen e3, rook e3, rook c1, rook e1, rook e1, checkmate. And queen g3, what about rook e3, then rook c1? Yeah, that should be the point. And my idea, of course, is, let's say, rook f1. I wanted to play queen h2, but not queen h2 now, but rook h5, h3 I will just take. Yeah, I think queen g3 is the solution. Let's see. Queen g3, queen e2. This is the best defense because of anyway, rook h5, queen h5, queen e1. I think anyway, rook h5. Yeah. Nice. Queen g3, hg, rook h5 was the main point in this position, so there is no mate. There is mate on h5. Let's continue, and what I see that after a pawn is weak, g-file is controlled. If there was no queen on f2, there would be mate. It gives me idea of distracting the queen. Let's say first move after these thoughts which came to my mind is queen c5, but I should be careful. Should I be careful? Rook h7, rook h7, no. Yeah, what about queen c5? Queen c5, queen cannot move to e2 because there is queen g1 mate, and let's say queen f1 doesn't help because bishop f3 and queen g1 anyway. So I think this is the solution. Or he has rook e3 back, then f4, right? Probably f4. Nothing going on here. Yeah, I think. And here f4 I wanted to play. No. Yeah, I thought it was not the move. Ugh, I trusted myself too much. Okay. Yeah, rook f g7 is the move because we're threatening rook g1 and we just win the rook like this. PT. Very PT. Because I thought I'm winning directly, directly with f4. And why am I not winning directly actually? Because queen h4 doesn't work. I have bishop f3 and mate. I'm so interested in your opinion now, guys. But it's not live session, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for myself actually, because I would ask you now, what do you think? And you would tell me the right solution, I'm sure. But after f4, we have to refute this. How to refute f4? How to refute f4? Threat is f takes e3. Okay. Why does not it win? Maybe rook d5? No, rook d5 I would just take on e3 actually. F takes e4, e3. Rook c5, f takes f, e takes f2. How can you defend rook g1? Okay. What could be the move? Why not f4? Rook e2 doesn't work because bishop f3 I would take. Maybe bishop h7 is the move. Bishop h7 is the move. Bishop h7, rook h7, because if I don't play rook h7 and play something else, let's say queen e3, then he takes the g8 rook with check, and this looks horrible. So bishop h7 here, rook h7, rook h7, king h7, queen h4, king g7. You know what I love of chess24 actually? This website is amazing because if you don't understand the position, you can just go to analysis tab and analyze the position. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna go to analyze the puzzle, and I'm gonna see what kind of mistake I did in the puzzle, and it's actually perfect. So I'm going to analyze the puzzle, and let me show you how it works. So we click on analyze the puzzle, then we go to analysis tab, and afterwards we have this position. Rook e5, queen c5, let me flip the board. Rook e3, and I wanted to play f4, which actually computer is also saying here you have analysis, and computer analysis is possible also to look at, and computer actually is saying that f4 also wins, but of course bishop h7, rook h7, rook h7, king h7, and queen h4, it's kind of, how to say, we still have advantage, we have an extra piece, but there was no need to do that. King g7, let's say, maybe king g6 is better, queen g4, king f7, queen f4, king e7. Okay, we do have the extra piece, but in this line we were actually winning the queen, and white just has rook in instead of queen. Yeah, I love this website. It's so easy to analyze the position, it's so easy to understand everything. My intuition was, okay, f4 also wins, but this was much easier. And I agree with chess24 that a rook f g7 is much stronger than f4. Okay, now let's go to see next puzzle. So far I think I did okay. It was not that bad. At least it went better than my previous tactic test. And there we are. Next puzzle. Knight d4. It was white's last move, knight d4, and what I see in the position. Bishop on g7 is very good. h8, a1 diagonal is open. The rook is on a1, which gives me ideas that something might happen on this diagonal. Knight d4 so far covers everything, but not completely, I would say, because there is no castle in the position. So after, let's say, knight d4, bishop d4, knight d3 comes to my mind. E takes d3, then I would take bishop d4, and queen d3, I would give the check on c1, queen d1, and knight d4. I think this is the solution. At least I hope so. If he takes queen d4, then I win the queen with knight d3, knight f3. Yep. This is perfect example, very instructive one, which shows that first develop and then do something else. Knight d4 here was a very big mistake from white's side. It's kind of difficult to see that knight d3 is coming, but there is no castle, and you always have to castle. I remember when I was a kid, probably I've told you already, but when I was a kid, my mother is also a chess player, and she took great care of my first step into chess world, and she was always telling me, develop your pieces, play in the center, castle, and then make the window for the king so that he can escape and you don't get mated very soon. So every time I was going to the tournament before the game, she was like, remember, develop your pieces, play in the center, castle, and make a window for your king. So I think that's a perfect way to tell the beginner and your kid that first what you need to do is get your pieces coordinated, play in the center, castle, because nothing can happen to you, no disaster in the opening if you castle at the right moment. Okay, let's go to another puzzle, and there we are. Queen e5. Queen e5 is the last move from white side. What I see, my bishop on d5 is perfect. Knight on h4 is way better, and queen e5 gives me ideas of check on f3, which means knight f3, g takes f3, queen g6, if king h1, bishop h3 mace, if king f1, bishop c4, there is rook e2, so I should not be happy. What else? Okay, I will use the tactic, well, the way of thinking which I advised you to do. Knight f3, just calculate one move extra. Knight f3, g takes f3, all forced. Queen g6, move candidates are bishop g5, which seems quite strong also because the bishop on d4 is hanging. And we have no exchange, so all kind of changes, simplifications in the position is in white's favor. And And king f1 is also possible because after bishop c4 there is rook e2, and white has enough material to give it back and still have extra piece or extra something. Okay, so knight f3 does not work that perfectly as I thought. What about queen f3? Does it work? Queen f3. First thing that we should calculate is g takes f3, queen g3, and that's it. Yeah, that's kind of it. Okay, what about knight f3, g takes f3, and queen takes f3? Then white has problems, right? Yeah, I think so. Sometimes we just have to sacrifice and stay on that diagonal. No queen g6, because it doesn't work. Yeah, I think knight f3, g takes f3, knight f3, g takes f3, and queen f3. Yeah, queen d5, and now we have extra queen in rook and bishop, which is quite nice. Queen e5 was a big mistake, though I'm not sure how should white continue here. He has an exchange, but black has perfect compensation because there is no light squared bishop, the king is weak, the g2 pawn is hanging, and knight on h4 is the beast. It's a really, really good one. Okay, another one. 7th rank, weak 7th rank, rook e7, but my king is on g1, so there are checks on d4, which gives me idea to play bishop d5 first to close the d file, and then play rook e7. I think that should be the solution. Bishop d5, rook e7, and queen h7 is huge threat. If he plays rook f7 or bishop f7, I would just take on d7. Wait, here is mate then. Yeah, that's right. So it was very easy. First thing that came to my mind was rook e7, of course. But after rook e7, you see that there is check on d4. And then it comes to your mind, oh, wait a second. Maybe we can close this d file first and then play rook e7. And that's what happened. After bishop d5, rook e7, there is no more check on d4, and white threatens the mate on h7 and the queen on d7 as well. So if he played something like bishop f7, we would just take on d7 and have extra queen. Okay, queen c6, queen h7 mate here. And what about this one? Knight d5. Okay, rook g8 cuts the king from g file. King is very weak. Knight d5 can be the target of the position. So far it is defended with the queen on d2, but it doesn't mean anything because we have the rook on c8, c2 is free. So far, what we can play? Can we play rook c2? We cannot play because of queen c2, but what about queen d2, rook d2, and now rook c2? Then I don't see how white defends the piece. Because if rook d1, I would just take on d5, check, and then I would take on b2. I think that's right. I would take here and here. Nice. Overloading. This is perfect example of overloading. Queen d2, rook d2, and the rook on d2 is overloaded, defending the knight on d5, and okay, it doesn't defend the bishop at the moment, but now it does. After rook c2, it was nice because the rook is very important on g-file, cuts the king to come into the game with king g1 or something, and after rook fd1, just bishop d5, rook d5, and the bishop now is not protected, so black wins the piece. Okay, so I guess this is my last puzzle, so I will try to solve it nicely and not end the video with failed tactic. So let me see. Queen on e5 is perfect. It can sacrifice itself on g7, the rook on g3 very important, and the bishop on g5 as well. So all my attention goes to king side, and the moves that I start to calculate is queen g7, bishop h6, and what more? That's it, I guess. Bishop f6 doesn't work. What happens on queen g7? King g7, and let's say bishop e7. King h8, f6 is protected, no big deal. What about bishop h6? Knight e5, bishop g7, king g8, bishop e5, mate. Yeah, this should be the solution because after bishop h6, ooh, bishop f7, I just take here now, and mate. But of course the main point was that after bishop h6, if he could take it, but he cannot because bishop g7, king g8, and bishop e5, bishop g5, and rook g5, mate. Nice, very beautiful puzzle, and this was my last puzzle today to solve, and thank you for watching me. Thank you that you participated, also with your support when I said that I cannot solve this puzzle, I need your help. So I counted on your support, and I'm sure you did it. But I guess today it was a good day because it went very nice. It was quite tough puzzles, but very instructive ones. We saw a lot of ideas and a lot of tactical motives. I hope I tried my best to give you my thoughts, how I think during the game, how I think during when I see the position, and tips for today is, of course, to calculate the clear line. Never ever play the move which you did not calculate it, and of course do not forget that when you calculate, stop. Like, let's say you decided that, yeah, that's it, I'm going for that move, then you stop, and if you have time, of course, and if it's not, please, you stop, you go through the line again, and you just make yourself to see one more move. This is very helpful because you will avoid blunders, you will avoid any kind of traps like this, and if you still get into the trap, at least you would be sure that you did your best, and okay, you didn't see the trap, you didn't see, it's no problem, but you tried to think of one more extra move, and then you played the move. So I'm wishing you good luck, stay sharp, solve a lot of tactics. I hope you enjoyed the video and see you next Thursday. Bye!